Welcome back to the Business of Biotech. I'm your host, Ben Comer, Chief Editor at Life Science Leader, and today I'm speaking with Dr. Ebrahim Delpassand, Founder, Chairman, and CEO at RadioMedix's, a radiopharmaceutical oncology company developing new therapies and diagnostic imaging agents both internally and in collaboration with other companies and organizations. Dr. Delpassand is a medical doctor in nuclear medicine and pathology and worked at MD Anderson for more than a decade as Chief of Clinical Nuclear Medicine and Deputy Chairman in the Department of Nuclear Medicine. Radiopharmaceuticals is a hot area of therapeutic development right now, and I'm excited to speak with Dr. Delpassand about how he built RadioMedix's, the company's business model and clinical programs, and why Big Pharma is spending billions of dollars to acquire radiopharmaceutical drug candidates right now. Thank you so much for being here, Dr. Delpassand.
Well, thank you so much, Ben, for invitation as well as kind introduction. Yes, I mean, as you mentioned, radiopharmaceutical space has come a long way now, and still a lot of excitements in the future. This is an area that is growing in oncology, especially, and it is based on significant knowledge and background that we have right now in the related to oncology, the process of oncological conditions, and also improvement in isotope manufacturing, radiopharmaceutical manufacturing, including finding very specific ligands that can reach to a specific moiety, whether it's an antigen receptor or a metabolic pathway on cancer cells. And of course, another portion is technology on the chelation technology, as we call it, which is a sort of a chain that attaches the radioisotope to the ligand and create and forming a diagnostic or therapeutic radiopharmaceuticals according to the isotope that is attached to the molecule.
Yeah, lots to talk about there. We have a number of things to dig into, but I want to start with how you initially became interested in radiopharmaceuticals. You know, why you chose that field, nuclear medicine, as a physician.
Good question. I mean, obviously, I'm a physician, nuclear medicine physician. We see patients every day, and we firsthand we see the need of the patients for better treatments, better outcomes, as well as more sensitive and specific diagnostic agents. So the idea of RadioMedix's really came from our clinic, seeing the patients every day, understanding the unmet needs that we have, an area that we can improve. So the idea came from clinic, but at the same time, a good understanding of our field, understanding how we can address these unmet needs, going to our scientists, essentially putting the problem on the table and ask them to see how we can address this problem. So very organically, I can say the idea of RadioMedix's came along. Of course, initially we started with founding our clinic, Excel Diagnostics and Nuclear Oncology Center in Houston, to give us the infrastructure needed to conduct any kind of research, clinical research. So we started with that full modality diagnostic medical imaging as well as therapeutic nuclear medicine. And then after that, RadioMedix's was born with the intention of a very intimate sort of a communication and understanding between our clinic as well as our researchers, so we can have from bed to bench as well as bench to bed. So whatever we invent at RadioMedix's for the first time is tried by our team at Excel in patients. So this created a very nice synergy and dynamics between our organizations, which led to the actually approval of a drug by FDA, as well as several promising drugs that now they are maturing in terms of regulatory path, hopefully getting to the finish line very soon.
So you noticed this clinical need. That was while you were at MD Anderson, and you mentioned Excel Diagnostics and Nuclear Oncology Center, a research center. What kind of prompted you to set that up as a practicing physician? What was the kind of catalyst that got you started on, company formation?
Sure. I think part of my brain was more thinking very entrepreneurial and trying to be thinking out of the box. I mean, when I was at MD Anderson, I had a secure job, and I could easily, essentially, do whatever I was doing over there, go to different parts of the world, give a lecture, etc. And of course, training residents, which was very close to my heart. That was probably my most the area of the work that I was most interested. But I thought that in spite of all the capabilities that I had at MD Anderson and the institutional capabilities, I thought that probably outside I can probably move faster and more efficiently, I should say. This is what I did initially. Many of my friends, they thought I'm crazy, but while you're doing this, you're losing a very safe and secure position in a big institution, one of the best cancer centers in the world. But
Absolutely.
I have this idea, I have this opportunity, and I would like to go after this. And I think history of RadioMedix in the last close to 20 years proves that I was right. But of course, we have to know a lot of work, a lot of weekends, holidays, nights, more early morning. This is what you need really to put down if you want to, accomplish this. And of course, anybody who, any of you, if you want to go after your dreams, you need to be prepared for that. There is a lot of sacrifice that needs to do.
So you founded Excel Diagnostics and Nuclear Oncology Center. A couple of years later, I believe, was the founding of RadioMedix's. Can you talk a little bit about, how you actually started it up and, who your co-founders were?
Right. Well, I'm blessed to have a very supportive family. My wife and I, we had an exit from another company that we had. So we felt that at least for a while, financially, we can afford to do this. The rest of my family, I have three daughters. They were all supportive of me. And one of them right now is, working with me, Ida Delpassand. Is started with the quality assurance, setting our QA department together, and now transiting to more public relation and business development in our company. For a while, she was actually the head of our manufacturing site, which is in north of Houston. So I think having, of course, a family, or in some cases even friends, that they are supportive of what you're doing and understand your sort of idea, I think is extremely helpful. And I was blessed to have this on my side.
Are there any negatives to having a family business, so to speak? I mean, are any kind of tense conversations at the holiday dinner table, or is it all good for you?
No, it's not always rosy, as you can imagine. There is always, there are differences in approach in if you have different issues that you want to resolve in the company and approaches that we want to have. But one thing I've always believed, and my belief was that none of us is as smart as all of us. Meaning that if you have people that they care about a goal, in this case about the company, about its future, as long as they are caring, as long as they want the best for the company, I think we must listen to everybody and try to gather basically all the information before making any decision. And I think this is the highlights of this. Yes, it's not always easy to work with family members, but at the same time, if you look at it from this aspect, that they all want the best. So why don't we be open-minded and listen to the everybody's mind, and then have a dialogue, discuss it, and at the end, when we make a decision, everybody is going to be aligned, and as everybody is going to be, supporter of what the decision you have made.
So you had some exit money to get RadioMedix off the ground. And fortunately had some talented family members that could pitch in as well. What could you say about, I guess, initially staffing up the company, both at the beginning and over time, where I'm curious if there were, members of just your network at MD Anderson, so it's fairly easy to reach out, or if you had to do something else to bring the right people into the company at the right time.
No, absolutely. I mean, no, actually not all of them from MD Anderson. I think I had initially our four scientists. One was from MD Anderson, another one was from Rice University, another one was from industry, and another one from totally different areas that we thought is going to be good fit. So yeah, I mean, these are the people that made our initial team. But at the same time, always, I mean, this is one of the challenges of any companies. You need to have right talents with the right knowledge and also passion. I think it's very important when you interview people to come to your company, describe to them your intention of doing this. I always tell whoever we are hiring that this company is a patient-centered. I'm a physician. My wife is a registered nurse. The company was born by clinicians who wanted to do better for the patients. And we are looking for people with this kind of a passion. It doesn't matter what you're doing. If you are doing only QA, lots of paperwork, or if you are just hands-on and pipetting certain drugs or doing radio labeling, or even somebody who cleans the lab at the end of the day, etc. All they need to understand what is their role in this. And many times, actually, I bring patients who have received the therapy with their permission to our team and say, talk to them, tell them about your story, how you were feeling before treatment and after treatment. And to me, that's the biggest sort of a motivation for people who are working in our space. Things don't happen overnight. It takes time. It takes a lot of work. And therefore, you need passionate people that they look at the endpoint of this. If you are if you don't see that endpoint, sometimes the job might be extremely difficult to conduct. So providing that kind of vision and insight and motivation to people who are working for your company, I think, is one of the best way to keep your employees actually with you.
And to your point on finding passionate individuals to join the company, and I guess I'm thinking, at the beginning, I mentioned at the top of this conversation that radiopharmaceuticals is a very exciting area, lots of growth, lots of deal making happening at the moment. I don't think that was necessarily the situation when you got started with RadioMedix, and I wonder, what the talent pool was like in terms of individuals that could actually discover and develop new radio therapeutics, radiopharmaceuticals. Was it difficult to find people, and is that talent pool expanding now?
We had just started actually understanding I think, the value and potential of nuclear medicine, and especially on the therapeutic side. We had a PET scan at the time, just a FDG PET scan that is used for more than 80%, 85% of the oncology conditions right now. But we had just started seeing drugs like Zevalin, for instance, Bexar. So they were targeted therapies against certain, let's say, CD20 antigen for lymphoma patients, etc. So With that kind of introduction, gradually you could see that scientists they are getting interested in the field. Yes, initially the knowledge was limited, but what we needed, let's say, radiochemists that they knew how to handle radioactive material, how to do radio labeling with different ligands. We needed obviously people expert in quality assurance because one part is drug development. I mean, QA is the backbone of drug development. So maybe the insight was not perfect at the time, but at the same time, if we knew what kind of a talent we need for this space, and of course on training. I mean, one of the main emphasis that we have had at RadioMedix is that we really would like our team to be to take advantage of any conferences. I mean, we haven't missed any except during COVID. We haven't missed any, let's say, major nuclear medicine meetings in US or North in the entire North America or even in Europe. So and of course allowing our scientists to get trained to participate in these meetings, giving allocation financial help so they can attend to these meetings, etc. So learning and training is integral part of what we're doing.
Excellent. I want to ask you next about RadioMedix's business model in terms of, what you decide to develop internally and what you license out. There have been some, big deals and now collaboration deals with Sanofi, with Fusion now, which has been bought out, in a blockbuster deal with AstraZeneca. How do you think, or how would you describe RadioMedix's business model? And I guess specifically how you develop what to out license and what to develop internally?
Yeah, good question and a very important question. You see, initially, number one, you have to see what you do best and what you can collaborate, and you think some other companies do that best. In case of our first drug that was received approval by FDA in 2020, the diagnostic drug copper 64 dotatate or Detectnet, we knew how to develop the study. We knew how to perform the clinical trials, but we thought that for commercial launch of the drug, we need to align and we need to partner with another big company that has done this many times with other drugs. This is why we went to Curium. Curium had cyclotron facilities in San Luis that they could make copper 64 for us. And they had experience in commercial launch. Developing drug is one thing, but navigating insurance companies, third-party payers, contracting with them, having a strategy in terms of the public awareness of the drug, as well as then manufacturing of the drugs and making sure that you can deliver the commercial phase. It's a totally different ballgame than, let's say, you make a drug for during investigational trial. So this is why our we didn't have cyclotron and we didn't have experience in commercial launch. This is why we went to a company like Curium and told them that we are willing to license this drug to you. And they were very well positioned. It's not like out of the blue we found Curium or asked Curium to do that. This company had the first drug in neuroendocrine cancer diagnostic, which I told them when I met first time with them, I said that, guess what? You have been a gold standard for diagnosis of neuroendocrine cancer. I have a news for you. The G is dropping, so it's going to be all the standard now. So they were initially puzzled what I'm talking about. I said, yes, we have a diagnostic PET agent, which has much better contrast resolution. It's a better a drug for this same condition. But at the same time, why I went to Curium? Because they already had their boots on the ground. They had their people already selling ActioScan, which was for neuroendocrine cancer. So this was the best fit. And this is why the commercial launch was so successful. Now, actually, DetectNet has more than 70% of the market, although there was another competing drug which was approved much earlier. But now we have a majority of the market because of its ease of use, centrally manufactured and available throughout the country. Wherever there is a PET scanner, they can ship the drug, and patients can benefit from that. The other deals, we were kind of looking at, again, our capabilities, I think. Fusion deal, we looked at Fusion as a company that has already secured several contracts for procuring actinium-225. And at the same time, our company was kind of more partial toward lead-212 because of other reasons that we had. And we thought they're going to be most suitable company because they had actinium. Having the source of actinium available is a big and very important factor in developing actinium therapies. So this is why we agreed to talk to them and license the drug. And I'm very happy for them that they had a great exit, actually, with, as you mentioned, blockbuster, deal with AstraZeneca, and we are waiting for the phase 3 clinical trial. That, of course, RadioMedix has its own incentive and milestone payments, etc., for that licensing. On the Sanofi side, the Alphamedix drug that we licensed to Sanofi was again the result of our collaboration with Oranomed, a French company with presence in Texas. They were the manufacturer of the drug, and they had a good source of lead-212 at the time. So and of course, phase 3 trials comes with a lot of expenses. It doesn't come cheap. And we thought that this is very good that, again, we partner with a big pharma that they have a lot of good experience in the conducting phase 3 trial, and at the same time financially can back this effort. The whole idea was to have the drug, the sooner the better, available to the patients because of the results were so promising as compared to a standard of care that is available. So this is why we did that. We have other drugs in our pipeline that we think we can do it ourselves, taking it to higher phases, even conducting a phase 3 if necessary. So a combination of those. I think you have to know your strength and your weaknesses, and based on that, make a decision how you want to approach and design your strategy basically for drug development.
Yeah, and I want to ask you about your internal development candidates, but before I do, you've alluded to, the sourcing issue with actinium, short half-life, inconsistent sourcing issues. Those have been long-standing challenges, for the field of radiopharmaceuticals. I'm curious about, what is changing and maybe what you might say about how RadioMedix is managing source materials and supply chains, with that kind of forward-looking view.
Of course. Yeah. We have 3 unmet needs in nuclear medicine as of today. One is sourcing of radioisotope. Another one is basically having sites for conducting clinical trials, because as you know, there are lots of clinical trials ongoing. So you need to have good sites that they know how to run these clinical trials. And of course, the third one is manpower. We really need good experienced, knowledgeable manpower. So on the supply of the radioisotopes, yes, nuclear medicine always has had challenges about the half-life. And this is something you cannot change it. You cannot change a gallium-68 half-life or lead-212's half-life, etc. So, but we have addressed this challenge. The most common isotopes that, let's say, fluorine-18 for doing a PET scan has a half-life of about 2 hours. The challenge has been responded by having regional sort of a cyclotron facilities that they can manufacture the isotope, do the radio labeling, and deliver within about 2.5 to 3 hours distance, driving distance. You can deliver the dose easily. In case of course, actinium half-life is very accommodating. I mean, it's more than 10 days half-life, so that's no problem. There are other issues about actinium, which we can talk later. In case of lead-212, specifically, we are talking about a 10.5, 10.6 hours half-life. So you need to have enough activity at the dispensing time, and you can calculate that how much at the calibration time at the end user, how much activity you're going to have. And then if you can solve this problem, you can easily have a centralized manufacturing and ship it by even commercial carriers like FedEx. And the next day, end users, they're going to have that, and they're going to have enough activity to give to the patients. So these have been solved. There are shielding issues that we have resolved that. And but there are other issues. Let's say in case of lead-212, parent isotopes, you want to make sure that they are available. In case of lead-212, there is abundant availability of thorium-228. Of course, you need to secure your sources for this still, but there is no shortage like I think like actinium-225, especially the pure actinium-225. So each of these isotopes, they have challenges. I'm pleased to, I'm sure you have seen our press release. We just introduced a desktop or benchtop lead-212 generator at the Society of Nuclear Medicine in New Orleans. And this is essentially, by the way, the Raha, word of Raha in Persian means freedom. And
okay.
having a freedom to have availability of lead-212 in your laboratory. This is a, this is an automated generator, automated synthesizer included in the generator, and you can refill the generator of lead just as needed on demand. Basically, you can fill up the column and ship it to the end user. So in this way, researchers or people even conducting phase 1, phase 2 clinical trials, they will have access to lead-212 for radio labeling. And this really opens up a great opportunity for our researchers. We wanted to democratize availability of lead-212 for the researchers. We experienced the sort of limitation when we started working with our partner, Oranomed, that we were limited, of course, to their manufacturing. And this is why we embarked on a project to make it more available for our own preclinical and clinical studies, as well as sharing this technology with other companies and academic centers, so they have availability of lead-212 for developing of any of these exciting drugs that they have. They have very promising ligands that they need isotope. Isotope is like the ligands are like a gun. Isotope is like a bullet. So you make most sophisticated guns, but if there is no bullet, it's not going to be useful. So this is why, and this is an example coming from Texas, of course.
And I did note the announcement of the benchtop lead-212 generator, which is a unique innovation. In terms of sharing it with other companies, will they be able to essentially kind of pay for access to that? And is it something that you can give to multiple different organizations? Is it modular in a sense?
Sure. Yeah, we have different basically strategies for making this available to interested parties. This is modular, so you can scale up amount of activity that you need for the project that you have. Typically for preclinical studies, you don't need as much activity as, let's say, if you want to manufacture several doses every week. You need a bigger generator. You need more of those modules that you need to order to have enough activity for making doses for human clinical trials. In terms of our business strategy, we will be somewhat selective in a sense that we would like to see the promise of the ligand that companies or academic centers they are working on, but still is in the form of more guidance and partnership. We want to see if we can also transfer our experience to them in using this radioisotope. And but the main thing is if we can expand the availability of this isotope, which in our hand has shown significant promise. I think it's going to be good not only for the field, but at the end for the patients who need these drugs in the future.
Right. And we're talking about the lead-212 radioisotope right now. You mentioned, at the very beginning with your first product, going to copper-64 away from gallium-68. What can you say about how you essentially choose new isotopes and evaluate them, and how you kind of landed on copper-64? And I'll use that to, move forward into a debate that I really want to get to, which is about beta versus alpha emitters.
Awesome. Yeah, of course, again, this is a prime example of learning from the clinic and then going to the scientists to address a shortcoming of one isotope, for instance. In case of gallium-68 comes from germanium gallium generator. Half-life is only 68 minutes. So the manufacturing is very fragmented. I mean, you cannot make the drug and then ship it from Texas to California. That is impossible. At the time when it gets to California, no activity is going to be there. So it's a very, a small radius, as I mentioned, maybe 2 hours driving distance. If you manufacture it, you can send it. Also, the number of doses that you can make from one single generator is very limited. When you're using gallium, there were 3 times in a day that you could get only one dose in Houston, when this is the biggest medical center in the world. Just you can imagine. I mean, they were delivering one dose at 7 o'clock, another one at 12, another one at 3 to 4 o'clock. So, and also when we were getting the doses, just imagine patient doesn't show up on time, or you have a problem starting IV for the patient, which are common things. I mean, or you have to reboot your PET scanner computer. All these things were causing so much anxiety and so much stress for our technologists and our staff when they were dealing with gallium-68 labeled agents. We went to copper because of copper half-life, which is 12 and a half hours almost. So that allowed us to have a centralized manufacturing, robust, high quality manufacturing and distribution across the country. And then when they receive it, our technologists, they can wait 3 hours even before injection of the patients, or after injection, they have more time if they want to repeat PET scan for whatever reason. If they want to have multiple time points on the patients, you can still use copper. So this was, although for the same indication, but this was superior to gallium. And I think because of all these facts, because being so user-friendly, so this is why we have a majority of the market now. So these are the things that you learn from the clinic. You learn from your technologists. They come and talk to you that, is there anything better than this? This is causing a lot of, anxiety for us. And these are expensive doses. I mean, if you can't use the drug, you're going to lose several thousands of dollars for that drug. And of course, I don't think any administration will like that. So,
right.
So this is an example. I'm glad that you brought it up, that you can actually use the clinic experience toward making better drugs.
So going back to lead-212, which is an alpha emitter, and my sense my sense is that is the direction that radiopharmaceuticals is moving toward alpha emitters and away from beta emitters. You know way more about this, so I'd love to hear your explanation as to, why alpha emitters may be, an improvement upon beta emitters. How are they different?
Yes, the difference are in two folds. One, in terms of path length. Path length is the distance that basically radioactivity can travel in the tissue. Okay. Uh, so as an example, lutetium path length in the tissue is about 2 millimeter. Okay. Alpha emitters typically have path length of between 10 to 80 microns. So if you look at these differences, it tells you that when you have a 2 millimeter in case of lutetium, there are other beta emitters like yttrium-90. It's more than a centimeter actually. So
Okay.
you're gonna have a lot of side effects or radiation to the cells that are not necessarily abnormal. So that is one difference. The other difference is in energy. The energy of alphas are between 100 to 400 times higher than different beta emitters. So you're talking about highly energetic with the short path length versus lower energy and longer path length in the case of beta emitters. Therefore, how this plays in treating cancer, the importance of alphas because of a higher energy and shorter path length is more targeted, and with the higher energy, it can break the DNA more effectively. Typically, majority of the breakage of the DNA caused by alpha emitters are double-strand DNA damage, which leads to the apoptosis and cell death, majority of the cells. On the other hand, on the beta emission, you have more single-strand DNA damage that gives the opportunity to the cancer cells to repair themselves. And therefore, we see more recurrence in the patients who are treating with beta emitters, as well as obviously it can translate into less effectiveness, if you will. The objective response, for instance, in the case that we have, which is very parallel comparison, comparing lutetium dotatate, which is a beta emitter for neuroendocrine cancers, with lead-212 dotamtate, which is a lead-labeled alpha therapy for neuroendocrine cancer, in the same cohort, in the patients who have not received prior any kind of a radionuclide therapy. The beta version has objective response of 13%. Ours has more close to 70%. So all these talks that I said earlier might be hypothetical, but here we have objective evidence in patients to see the difference.
Right.
I want to go into too much detail about activation of immune response, etc., which is so fascinating, actually, that part. We think that alpha emitters like lead-212 actually stimulates and activates the immune system, which can actually continue the effectiveness of a drug. We have patients that 6 months after the last treatment, still they show response to therapy. That's not radioactivity for sure. I mean, the radioactivity is already decayed. This is the response of immune cells into the cancer after damage of the cancer cells. And this is continued, actually. So it's a very fascinating field, multifactorial, but in summary, these are the differences between beta and alpha.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the vast majority of approved radiopharmaceuticals in the past have been beta emitters. Now, there's some incredible data coming out about alpha emitters. Is there still a role for beta emitting therapies, new ones going forward, or is it your sense that alpha emitting therapies will completely supplant the use of beta emitting therapies? In the next, couple of years?
So here is my bias. I feel that beta emitters are a stepping stone coming to alpha emitters. However, having said this, I think both isotopes will have a role in the near future. Definitely, the amount of research that is ongoing on beta emitter drugs, lutetium-177, even terbium is coming right now. These are beta emitter, copper-67, for instance. These are all beta emitters, and they will have a role in medicine. But alpha emitters, for sure, I mean, because of what I just described, it is very exciting. If we can resolve the issue of supply of the alpha emitters, different alpha emitters, whether it's astatine-211 or actinium-225 or lead-212, we need to have a good supply, and we need to expand the research in this area. And of course, there are several mature clinical trials ongoing in the late phase two, completion, starting phase three. These are going on in alpha emitters. But to me, this is the optimal tool that we have. I think we need to have higher energy to deliver any cancer cell. If you can safely deliver enough radiation, you can kill cancer cells. The issue is that safely, I mean, we need to have basically to design the radiopharmaceutical that be so effective on the cancer cells, but spares the normal cells, basically normal organs, etc. So this is something that I think the field is going to go toward more alpha therapy, but definitely there is a role for beta emitter therapies as well.
And radiopharmaceuticals, historically, have targeted a specific set of cancer, specific type of cancers, thyroid cancer, prostate cancer, specific neuroendocrine tumors, which you've mentioned. But you're taking some big swings, beyond those specific cancer types. What can you say about the next therapeutic frontiers for radiopharmaceuticals and what you're working on?
Well, RadioMedix, we are working on several unmet needs in oncology. And the basically top one is brain tumor that we are working right now. I sincerely hope that we can make a big difference for these patients. Whatever we have done in the last 20 years for brain cancer patients has not really significantly changed the outcome or quality of life of our patients.
Right.
Unfortunately, in the more aggressive type of brain cancer, we lose the patients maybe in about 2 years, in spite of significantly affecting on their quality of life after surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation therapy. Our idea is that reach the cancer, let's say GBM, tumor cancer, brain cancer in the brain by simple IV administration and deliver a big load of radiation to the tumor inside the body without cutting the patient, without causing a lot of side effects for the patients that is sometimes worse than the disease itself. So this is our goal. We have a drug that can cross blood-brain barrier. This is one of the challenges of treating brain tumors. I mean, it's different from solid tumors in the rest of the body. Brain has its own sort of a protective layer that makes it difficult for many drugs to cross that and gets to the brain tumor. So this drug that we are working on has this capability of crossing blood-brain barrier. We are using our best available isotope, which is lead-212, and the best ligand that has high affinity for GBM or brain tumor. So this is one. Interestingly, the same drug has affinity for pancreatic cancer. So this is the next unmet need that we have in oncology. Again, very difficult disease to treat, and I'm talking about adenocarcinoma of the pancreas. There is a neuroendocrine version which is totally different than this type. So we are hoping that the next step to work on that. And of course, we have other ligands like GPC3, for instance, which works on hepatocellular cancer and some urogenital cancers. And also, we have a ligand, proprietary ligand for prostate cancer as well, that we would like to radio label with lead-212 and use that for. So these are some of the areas that we are working. And of course, there are very exciting targets that scientists are looking at. And we are hoping to improve that portion, the ligand, the carrier of the isotope. more. And I think that will be the future frontier of nuclear medicine. We need to have more, ligands with more affinity to the target and higher residence time in the target. I think that will be the area of growth in nuclear medicine.
Right. And which internal candidate would you say is your lead candidate or is furthest along at this point?
I mean, of course, Alpha Medics, which we have licensed to Sanofi, that is further
Okay,
along.
yeah,
We
sure.
have licensed that. But internally, the drug that I mentioned, we call it RMX-VH. It has affinity for low-density lipoprotein receptor in GBM and pancreatic cancer. That is the highest one, followed by GPC3 and prostate cancer at this point.
And how are you thinking about scale up? I wanted to ask you about your Spica manufacturing center that you've built in Houston, and maybe you could talk a little bit about how you think, how you think about scaling these programs up as they progress into, larger clinical studies.
Absolutely. I mean, that is another, as I mentioned, the third unmet need. Yes, beside the people that really we need to have knowledgeable and manpower in the field. Another one is actually manufacturing site. That's another thing that we need. RadioMedix started addressing this issue in 2019. We put together our Spica Center manufacturing site, which is close to the airport in Houston, 27,500 square feet of manufacturing, 7 large clean rooms equipped with all analytical. So that's the place that we do a scale up. That's the place that we run our, let's say, we will have enough bandwidth to make our drugs required for, let's say, phase 3 trials. Of course, all our manufacturing, all the drugs that goes into human at this point is manufactured at Spica Center. But definitely something like this is needed when you're talking about tens of doses every day that you need to do for clinical trials, phase 3 trials, as well as down the road commercial launch.
Would you potentially consider commercializing your own therapies? Would you need to partner at that point, or have you mapped that out?
It depends. Now we have learned a lot, of course, in what it takes to commercialize the drug. But still, we are very open to collaboration. We like to see that, companies that they have more experience than us come, and we definitely welcome, communication with these companies and working together for the commercial phase. We have a lot of experience in conducting clinical trials, both on the regulatory strategy as well as enrollment of the patients, etc. But definitely we welcome any collaboration by big pharmas, by companies that they have a lot of experience in that area.
Right. We've talked about this a little bit, but RadioMedix is now 20 years old as a company. Put yourselves in the shoes of a physician or an academic scientist, with a bold idea for a new therapeutic approach, who wants to start up, a biotech or a pharma, a life sciences company. Just thinking about thinking back over your 20-year journey, the challenges you've had to overcome, what kind of advice would you give to someone like that who's maybe has, a safe and comfortable academic job, but really sees a need out there for patients?
Sure, Ben, this is a loaded question. I mean, a lot of stuff, but I can.
Don't do it. Is that what you're going to say?
But I can summarize some of my experience in the last 20 years since the inception of RadioMedix. So number one, I think I would like to advise my young colleagues, start by a good legal structure for your company. Think about, because this is very important. You need to align yourself with a legal firm. I know initially when you start, things are, money is in shortage, and these things they don't come cheap, but there are good firms that actually understands our field and understand the startups and challenges and that a CEO or a CFO of a startup company has. So they cooperate. They want to essentially lay the seeds so in the future actually be your partner. And then at that time, obviously, there's not going to be a problem with money. So this is very important for your. You need to have a very solid structure. Think about where you want to, for instance, register your company and what would be the structure. If you are having a stock options, for instance, it should be all written, all very, organized, basically. This is one thing. The other thing is that, do not sign any agreement without really legal oversight. I think you will see that the money that you spend, well thought agreement, whatever you pay to the attorneys, 10 times higher for you if you have done a good job in terms of the legal agreements and having a nice, solid oversight by a legal counsel that they have experience in doing these things. Second, I think, hire talented and right knowledge people. These are the backbone of any company. This is the most valuable asset of any company. People who are knowledgeable, they have good talent, and also, as we discussed, passionate about your goal. They understand, they share your vision, they share your, future that you're thinking about. I think the other thing is that as an owner of the business, I should say, be ready to come first, to leave last, and get paid last. I mean, that's the rule of the game. If you don't want to do that, I don't think you are right for this. There is a need for a certain sacrifice, and of course, you need to have funding to do that. Look at the funding that is available to you and look at your goals and the sort of runway that you can have. Also, understand the unmet needs on your field. As we mentioned, it's very important to know where is itching to scratch. You need to know the unmet needs. And this is very important to be successful. We don't do in drug development, you don't do research for research. You do research to solve a problem for the patients. And always have the end point in sight. What would label of your drug would look like? You need to go toward that, and you need to look at it day one that you have this. Understanding your competition, your space, extremely important. And also, the last but not the least, patients' welfare. This is a business of helping patients with catastrophic illnesses. Always have that in mind. You want to help the patients. And always, when you are designing a clinical trial, when you are essentially even hiring people, when you are allocating resources, financial resources, see where you can use your dollars to the best of the way to help the patients.
Excellent advice. And Dr. Delpassand, thank you so much for coming on the show.
My pleasure, Ben. Thank you for invitation. And happy to come to your show anytime you feel appropriate.
We've been speaking with Dr. Ebrahim Delpassand, founder, chairman, and CEO at RadioMedix's. I'm Ben Comer, and you've just listened to the Business of Biotech. Find us and subscribe anywhere you listen to podcasts, and be sure to check out new weekly videocasts of these conversations every Monday under the Business of Biotech tab at lifescienceleader.com. We'll see you next week, and thanks for listening.